Welcome to PZA Agricultural Planning Zoning Agricultural Meeting from Wednesday, April 19th at 9 a.m. We're here. Could I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Featherling?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Ms. Weber?
Here.
Mr. Fairfield?
Present.
Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Swanson?
Present.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Present.
Ms. Foster?
Present.
Ms. Andrade?
Present.
Mr. Ashcraft?
Present.
Mr. Scanlon? Ms. Turner?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
Mr. Alexander Hildebrand? We have a quorum.
Thank you. I don't see any public comment. I don't have anything in front of me. We're all good out there. Can we get approval of minutes? Everybody received them in the email. Anyone have any changes or deletions they want to make, or we have motion, entertain a motion to Mr. Miller, Mr. Long. All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Okay, next is the building permit. Could we get a motion to approve a building permit? Mr. Eckhoff. Okay, hold on one second here. I gotta write something down here.
Who's the
Okay,
second?
Mr. Long, sorry. I forgot where I was at here. Okay, Dill.
All right, are we on?
Yes.
Number
Oh, 3. I'm on.
All right, good morning. Your building report for March of 2023 should be in your packet. We issued 74 total permits, no new houses, brought in revenue of $43,000. A lot of that from a couple of solar farms. We are trending upward in revenue. Same month last year, we had only brought in $24,000 in revenue. Total residential permits out of that 74 was 63 residential permits.
Okay, any questions for Dell? We have a motion and a second. Can we get all in favor say aye? Aye. Thank you. Opposed, same sign. Okay, next we have MS4 stormwater again, Dell.
Yes, this will be on the agenda every month. If anyone has any stormwater related issues that they would like to bring forward or discuss or bring to our attention, that's what this time is for.
Okay, anyone have any questions for Mr. Skimmerhorn on that one?
Okay. We are required to
bring it up
yeah, as part of our MS4 permit. So,
okay. Next up, we have some decommissioning plans. I'd like to get a motion to combine and improve all 3 decommissioning plans. Okay.
That one, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Is the clicker working?
Yeah.
Yes, it's working now.
Okay.
Are you ready for me, or?
Yeah.
Okay. We have 3 decommissioning plans and bonds this month. One for Irwin Solar Farm, which is out near the quarry area in Pilot Township, and Thifault 1 and 2, which are over off of Vincent's Trail in Momence Township. The bond amounts are listed up there. One's $191,000, $176,000, and $178,000. These are following the path of our old ordinance, since they were the ones that were approved for zoning in 2018. So we still have some legacy ones of those that we will be doing.
Okay, I'm sure everyone noticed it seems like they're very repetitive, so we get a motion in a second. We had Mr. Swanson and Mr. Eckhoff, first and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Pardon? Oh, I can't see it. Sorry, Andy. Yes, sir.
It's the only question. I just had a question regarding contingency, Bill.
Sure.
I'm seeing 20% on all of these. I believe I looked at them all. Is that a number that is locked in by the new legislation? And the reason I ask is we are being mandated to account for the scrap value in 20 years of this material from solar farms. Can we increase that contingency number based on the fact that we don't know what the market is going to be in 20 years for scrap?
These go off of our old way of doing things. So there's a little bit of difference. The new way of doing things, I don't believe so. It must match, the decommissioning plan that is in the agricultural impact mitigation agreement. it must match that, the decommissioning plan and the bond moving forward on any new projects that haven't been previously approved, or any of them that come up for an extension will follow the new path, and the new path is that the decommissioning plan and bond match that of the AMA. I would have to look at the AMA and see if there's anything in there for a contingency.
I think you see what I'm trying to do is that we're trying to protect our future
Sure.
boards' exposure on the scrap market, which is extremely volatile.
Yes, and when you see these numbers, those numbers would drop dramatically if you didn't include scrap value.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. We had a first and a second, right, Kelly? Okay. Any more questions? Anything else, Andy?
I will look into that, Andy.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, huh? Okay, the next up is ZBA case 23-06 is a request for a text amendment to the county code -121-37 zoning board of appeals administration and enforcement petitioners Kankakee County, and that we would have a motion and a second on that. Okay. Mr. Swanson, Mr. Long, second. Go ahead, Del.
All right, it's very hard to read up there, so hopefully you can follow along in your packet. Anytime I have text like this, it just doesn't work on the PowerPoint. Basically, this is an amendment to our ordinance. Currently, some variances, when they are requested, stop at the Zoning Board of Appeals is the final decision-making authority. Those are setback variances and variances to do with parking lots, loading spaces, yards to be smaller than required, and so they stop at the Zoning Board of Appeals and never come before this committee or the county board. Over the last month or so, we have discussed that we're not sure why that is, and to keep checks and balances in place, we are removing that language so that all variances always go all the way to the county board, and that's what this does. So we're striking out the parts where it says these stop at the Zoning Board of Appeals, and making sure that everything goes to the county board so that they get to review, you guys get to review it and make sure that the right decisions are being made. So it's really a check and balance situation.
Del, could we get a couple quick examples of what you're talking about as far as the simpler zoning cases so everybody understands what you mean?
Well,
by
I think
a simple case?
I think it was really meant to save time on some of the simpler cases. If you have, if you need a 5-foot setback and you only got 4 feet, well, that's a 1-foot variance. Does the county board necessarily need to weigh in on that? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But that extra layer of review and a little bit more time, a few more weeks between zoning board and county board, is not that big of a deal to get that extra, little bit of extra review and in the decision-making process. So.
Okay. Any questions for Del on that one? Okay.
The zoning board did vote to approve this amendment 4-1. The dissenting vote didn't say why. I think it had to do with, it does technically take a little bit of authority away from the zoning board. But as I explained to them, it doesn't change anything. They still do their vote. It's just their vote is not the final say.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, we had a motion and a second according to my notes here. So all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. Going again. We're going to combine and approve a couple of appointments here. Mr. Ashcraft, you want to make a motion to combine and approve? Okay, get a second. Okay, Mr. Long? Yeah. Okay, got a motion and a second here. These are just reappointments, so we'll take a first and a second, so we get all in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed, same sign? None? Okay. Okay, next up we have a comprehensive plan training and discussion by Mr. Skimmerhorn.
Yes. This is part D of our ongoing training, and so far this would be the final bit of training unless somebody can come up with another subject they'd like me to discuss. If it's all right with the chairman, we could take questions as we go. It's a little bit lengthy, but not so much that you're going to be here for 2 hours.
We don't want to wait till the end, do we? We want to do them as we go, or
That's all right, but
we could, however Dell wants to do it.
so today we're talking about comprehensive planning. The county has a comprehensive plan. This is what it looks like right here. It can also be found on our website if you don't want to waste a couple of trees printing it. If anybody doesn't have one and would like a printed copy, let us know. We'll make you one. This clicker hangs a little bit. So let's go to a little bit of history. First of all, let's talk about what a comprehensive plan is. Comprehensive plan is a guide for the county board and other decision makers to use and consult when you're making land use and development decisions. That's what it is. It is not an ordinance, it is not law, and it is not regulation. It is a guideline, but it's a guideline that's been thought about ahead of time and been plotted out. So it is a good guide. Not everything fits within that guide. Not everything was thought about at that time, and therefore you can make changes. It is not a static document. It is a fluid document and can be changed periodically and should be changed and examined periodically. Kankakee County's first comprehensive plan was adopted in 1978. 14 years later, an extensive update, pretty much an entire rewrite, was done in 1992. And then 13 years later, our current plan was adopted in 2005. So it is 18 years old right now. It's getting a little dated. Typically, they are 20-year plans, and you want to start looking at updating about year 15. So we're a little over. Okay. So, comprehensive planning process. It's a multi-step endeavor, and it should involve the entire community. And I did sit on the committee back in 2005. We had a lot of public involvement, and we will constantly request public involvement in the planning process. And the plan focuses on 4 key questions. Where is the community now? That's where we examine existing land use, where our roads and infrastructure are, sewer and water, what the culture is, and demographics. We look at, current and past demographics to see how the county is doing. How did the community get here? That's another component. So we look at history. What's happened in the past? What mistakes did we make? What was successful? So we look at that so that we can move forward. And then here's the big discussion. Where does the community want to go? And that looks at future land use, future roads, future infrastructure. Where do you want the community to be in 20, 25 years? And that's what the outlook of the plan is. You're planning today for where you want to be in around 20 to 25 years. And then you get to the really planning part. These are the goals and objectives. How do we get there? So we know where we've been. We know where we want to go. How do we get there? So those are the components of the plan or the process. Update cycle. Typically, it covers a 20-25 year period, and you usually start updating it about 5 years prior to that, so in our case, around 15 years. Ours is 18 years old. It is time to start thinking about it, and the planning process can take up to 2 years generally. The last one was 18 months, so between 18 months and 24 months to get to the end. And updating the plan usually falls on the shoulders of the Regional Planning Commission as the lead for that plan.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Do they handle the public hearings at that level, or do they come to the ZBA or here or to the county? Would the county board chairman appoint a committee to do this, or how would they do that?
Typically, throughout the whole process are public meetings, and that's where you gather public input. You have charrettes, like when you're doing the future land use plan, you put maps on a table and break people into groups, and everybody gets markers. It's really a fun exercise.
Yeah, I've done it a couple times.
You bring all of that together and decide what's best and how it all fits together. The public hearing part of it would come after the plan is mostly complete, and the Regional Planning Commission would be ready to submit that plan to the county board for approval. The final step before that would be a public hearing, where we would present the plan to the public and give 30 or 90 days, somewhere in that range, for the public to get a last chance to comment on it again. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. So it's the components of the plan. And I've got this broken down into the previous planning process. Got introduction and vision and demographics and trends. So that tells you where the community is now and where the community's been. And then our plan has the land use plan, the transportation plan. We have natural resource, open space and recreation section, the public facilities plan, and the economic development plan. So that part of the plan tells us where the community wants to go. And then at the end, how do we get there? That's the implementation part of the plan. Now, looking at our current plan, one of the first things they did was scenario selection. They had 3 different scenarios that came forward. Business as usual, which was, what if we don't do anything? And the only changes we make are based on demographics. Then they cut the county in half and said, everything to the north of Route 17 is urban, everything south is rural. And then they had the town and country approach, where development would be concentrated around the municipalities and everything else would remain rural or agriculture. The county board at that time in 2005 decided to go with the town and country approach, which made more sense. Hard to grow forward if you keep business as usual. And the urban north, rural south just was wrought with many issues, giving everybody north of Route 17 development rights and everybody south of 17 none, and didn't necessarily fit a good pattern. So that one was quickly dismissed as well. But that's part of the planning process, is bringing different ideas forward and seeing which one works and which one doesn't. And again, the reason they chose town and country, it preserves the county's unique urban and rural lifestyles. It accommodates growth in an orderly manner by concentrating things around our municipalities. And it did put in a provision where they also allowed growth around hamlets, areas that were not municipalities but already had an urban or residential feel to them. Some of your smaller outlying places that aren't actual municipalities. Witchert, Whitaker, some of those kind of places, Sherburneville. And then for all of this, goals and objectives were established for each of the components that coincided with that scenario. So our land use plan. And this is one that you really should look at anytime you're making a zoning change. Whenever you have a request to change zoning on a piece of property, you should open this book or look it up on the website, look at the map and see what the map and the plan says about that area. If somebody's requesting their property be changed to commercial, what's the plan say? Is that a good area for commercial, or should it remain to agriculture? Or maybe residential's the more appropriate use for it. So that should be your main guiding factor when making zoning decisions for change of zoning. If it goes against the plan, that's one of the components of determining if something is spot zoning or not. If it's in compliance with the plan, even though it might be surrounded by other uses, if the county would wish that area to transition from residential to commercial, and the plan says it should, having commercial isolated inside of a residential area is consistent with the plan and therefore not spot zoning. Many times it takes a lot of years for that to occur, for a transition like that. Some of that you can kind of see, like in some of the urban areas. You look along Armour Road, you've got some businesses mixed in with the houses. That's because the Village of Bourbonnais plans that area to be commercial along Armour Road, but yet it's being used as residential now. So it's a very slow transitional process. And there's what our map looks like. Unlike a traditional future land use map, where it usually identifies residential areas, commercial areas, industrial areas that you want to grow into, this one took a little bit different approach. The green areas are to remain rural agriculture, the light green areas. The light gray areas are what they call community development area. And through the discussions, it was determined that we wanted to concentrate growth around the municipalities, and we really should not dictate to what that use should be, the municipality should be. So what it does is anything in that gray area should be or could be developed, but we would follow the lead of the municipality in the area as to what it should be developed to. So when we have a zoning case in those areas, we not only consult our plan, but we also consult the plan of that municipality. Okay. And the yellow areas are very similar to the light gray, except it was meant to be a more or a less dense conservation style development because it's a smaller towns and more rural area. So as you can see, the grays are the light gray and the yellow is all concentrated around municipalities.
Could you say that one more time? The yellow areas are?
That's called conservation development. Similar that we would take the lead of the municipality, but it's meant to be more low density. You wouldn't put a Walmart in the yellow area, but you might put a gas station or a convenience store.
Tackle shop.
Tackle shop, okay. Residentially, you wouldn't put high rises or multifamily there, but you might put, 2-acre lot, single family homes. Okay. But then again, if the municipality wanted more density, then we would follow their lead on that. Okay. And now this gets a little hard to read. Goals and objectives of our plan. Goal 1 was to provide locations for adequate urban development while minimizing impacts to natural resources, agriculture, forest, soils, and maximizing available public services such as roads, sewer, water, and police and fire. And the plan pretty much accomplishes that because municipalities are where those resources are, so we're concentrating it in those locations. And then there's a huge number of objectives, and unless you want a 3-hour meeting, I'm not going to go through these line by line because this is page 1 of many. But some of these objectives and goals are really no longer valid or should be looked at because things have changed. Objective 1.10, consider the possible impacts of the development of the South Suburban Airport near Peatone. And while that was done somewhat, it's 18 years later, it probably needs to be revisited if the airport's even going to happen, which I think it is. I've heard some rumors out there about it again. But anyway, it should be reconsidered. We don't necessarily, the impacts 18 years ago may not be the same impacts today. So goal 2 of the plan, preserve the county's distinctive rural, natural, and cultural resources. And maybe I'll just go through the goals and you guys can read the objectives at your leisure if you'd like. Goal 3, support a countywide program to prepare for and address development rights or development of regional impacts such as airports, amusement parks, etc. So they wanted to have a special path and process for very large developments. That was never created, so when revisiting the plan, we should decide whether we want to still pursue that, and if so, we should give some resources to actually getting it done this time. Promote a range of housing choices throughout the county. And there's some objectives on how to go about doing that there as well. And that was the land use portion of the plan. Now we have the transportation component, and this works in conjunction with and complements the MPO's plans, county highways plans, and other transportation plans. So this is just another layer, and it does take a lot of that into consideration. You see back in, and here's some other changes that need to occur in our plan. Back in 2005, the Illiana Expressway, or the east-west corridor, was still a thing. In fact, in 2005, the Illiana Expressway wasn't on the plan, and we had an option of putting a thoroughfare along the county line is what we put in our plan. That eventually morphed into the Illiana Expressway. But so our plan is calling for some type of east-west corridor along the county line. It called for improvements to the 6,000 road, with the interchange being the first step, and you can see there in the middle, that orange line would be to take it all the way out to 102 to the west, and somewhere in Indiana, most likely I think it was Route 41 to the east. And some other major corridors along Route 17. You see a south side bypass of Kankakee on there, connecting Route 17 west back in with Route 45 on the south side. Not even sure that would still be viable with some of the development that's occurred. So those are the kind of things you'd be looking for. And we would pull out the current, well, the MPO is actually just getting ready to redo their plan in the next year and a half. But we would work with the MPO and other transportation agencies to redo that part of the plan. So that has its own goals and objections too, or objectives, not objections. Goal 1, maintain and enhance the existing county transportation system. Goal 2, integrate multimodal transportation planning with land use and economic development to create transportation choices. Goal 3, support the MPO's efforts to secure multimodal transportation funds. Goal 4, facilitate improved regional corridor access systems through Kankakee County, and that included the east-west corridor, east-west truck traffic, river crossing, and air transportation. Then we have the natural resource, open space, and recreation component. This complements both the land use and the transportation sections of the plan. There's no map involved with this one. Goal 1, preserve the integrity of the Kankakee River as a sustainable source of water and as an environmental, recreational, and economic resource. Over the last few years, that has really came to the top of some of our activities. Goal 2, safeguard Kankakee County's environmental features and natural resources as distinguishing features of the county. Goal 3, manage stormwater, floodplains, and wetlands. We have been doing that for at least the last 30 years, and that still continues in an ever-changing playing field. Goal 4, support a public and private park and recreation system that promotes healthy lifestyles by offering active and passive recreational opportunities. And I believe part of that one, we had the Greenways and Trails plan, was another supplemental plan that went into that. And part of that was talking about having a county-wide park district, forest preserve district, that could better coordinate those type of activities. And public facilities is where it looks at major facilities and infrastructure that are not related to transportation. And the goals for that: in support of the land use and development goals, new urban and rural development should be supported with adequate water and wastewater facilities. That's why we were focusing everything towards the municipalities that already have that or are capable of providing it. Support managing county solid waste in accordance with the following action hierarchy: prevent, reduce, reuse, recycle, waste to energy, incinerate, and then landfill. So they wanted landfilling of waste to be the last option to be chosen. Goal 3, ensure a supply of high quality water, including conservation measures to support the county's population, economy, and natural systems. Goal 4, support a system of public safety, justice, and law enforcement that provides equal and fair treatment to all. Goal 5, support funding the county's educational system to ensure the equitable distribution of quality education. So that was the public facility part. The economic development plan. This part of the plan also complements and works with planning at the Economic Alliance of Kankakee County. They have their own plans over there, so that's another plan that would have to be examined for this portion of the planning effort. And again, no map involved with this one, but there's some goals. Strive to achieve a stable economy that includes business diversity, provides high-paying primary employment and living wage opportunities, and is compatible with planned growth and quality of life objectives for the county. Goal 2, support workforce education to expand and diversify the county's labor populations. through a variety of institutions and learning technologies. I think the Economic Alliance has made some movement forward on these goals. Goal 3, provide overall leadership and direction for the county's economic development. Okay. Now let's look at some changes. So why does our plan really need to be updated? Well, back in 2005, some things didn't exist. Under land use and development, renewable energy facilities were not a thing then. And now they're becoming very prominent, and their impact was never considered in the plan. We've had municipal expansions, including 2 new municipalities since 2005, the Village of Limestone and the Village of Salmons Point. So that was never considered in our plan and how that might affect our plan. Internet and online options for goods and services, a lot of e-commerce, people working from home. None of that was considered in our plan, which can greatly change your transportation routes and land use patterns. Maybe we don't need 2,000 acres of commercial development if people are buying things on Amazon and having it delivered to their house. Maybe we need more industrial space for warehouses at that point. That was never thought about, so that's something that would need to be looked at. We didn't have historic preservation in 2005. That didn't start till 2008. Public Act 095 for pre-annexation agreements. That was not a thing then. Now a municipality can pre-annex a piece of property, and that piece of property would fall under their jurisdiction as if that property were in the municipality. So that does have an impact. A municipality could, say, annex a piece of property a mile from their municipality, pre-annex it, and grant zoning for whatever they'd like. And the county really can't stop that. So that's something to think about. Impact fees, they were just getting started in 2005. That would be something the plan should probably look at. And there's a lot of new zoning concepts and different types of residential development that was not part of the plan because it wasn't really a concept back then, such as tiny homes, auxiliary dwelling units, different types of multi-use or multifamily. None of that was considered in the plan either. So for land use and development, those are some of the things that should be looked at moving forward, and our current plan doesn't really address. Transportation, the 6000 North Road interchange was in the plan, but now it's here. So how does that change things? The I-57 exit 312 reconfiguration, is that going to change anything? 9000 North Road improvements, Hobby Avenue improvements, and mass transit expansions. You know, since 2005, Metro is now going to Manteno and University Park and Midway Airport. Does that change traffic patterns, transportation patterns, different options? Should we have more residential around those locations so people can have a can walk to the bus stop? So those kind of things should be looked at. Under natural resources, the Kankakee National Wildlife Refuge and Conservation Area didn't become a thing until 2016. Should look at what those impacts will have on the county, and particularly Pembroke Township, and I think some of Momence Township. New parks have been built, new bike trails, bike lanes, those should be looked at. Loss of solid waste oversight, loss of a landfill. We have not had a solid waste division since around 2007. We are currently trying to reestablish that, but again, something else that should be looked at. For recreation, we lost a lot of golf courses in that period of time. And stormwater and erosion control ordinance didn't come into effect till 2006, so should examine how effective that's been and if there's any change that needs to be done there. Public facilities, our plan talks about the new corrections facility in Pembroke, which was a thing back then. That didn't happen. Courthouse renovations and needs.
It is.
That's currently ongoing now, but I don't know how that might affect public facilities moving forward. The natural gas pipeline in Pembroke Hopkins Park. That's probably going to spur on some development out there. We probably should examine where that development should be and how it would affect our road systems and the current existing development. And the Rural Broadband Initiative, bringing broadband services to all of the rural areas. How is that going to affect our land use patterns? If it's easier to live in the rural areas, people might actually take that option. Is that going to change how we provide mass transit to them? How we provide other services to them? It probably will. That should be examined. Economic development. About the same year we adopted our plan, the Economic Alliance was created. So none of the parts of the economic development plan of our comprehensive plan were weighed in on by the Economic Alliance. We've had a reduction in retail. The mall is barely hanging on, and we've had some major shifts of our commercial corridor. It used to be, the corner of Route 50 and Armour Road was the commercial area on up to Larry Power. Now it seems to be migrating northward to St. George Road and probably to the new 6000 interchange. So need to see how that's going to affect things. We've had a lot of large employer expansions and new developments with CSL, Nucor. Got a truck stop, one truck stop that we didn't have in 2005 and another one coming. And Van Drunen Farms has made some major expansions. We've got 2 new enterprise zones. They went into effect in 2017. There's a land bank that's been created, and that was this year, so they're getting started. I don't know how that.
Sorry, what are you doing?
I'm sorry.
I don't think he realizes.
Yeah.
Andy?
No, we're.
Oh, okay. We had the economic slowdown that occurred around 2009, 2008, which pretty much put a halt to any development. So a lot of the growth figures in this plan never came to fruition. According to the plan, we should be at probably about 135,000 people right now. We're not. We actually lost population. So got to see how that affects moving forward. COVID-19, that definitely changed travel patterns, how we work and how we shop. Changing demographics, the Hispanic population continues to increase. Aging population, our population keeps getting older. And we have the loss of population in 2020. All areas that need to be looked at and analyzed. And there's a lot of new state statutes and laws out there. The Agricultural Experience Act, Future Energy's Job Act, and there's numerous changes to other existing laws that should be considered to see how that might change things. What's in the plan that didn't happen, at least not yet? West Side Bypass, South Suburban Airport, high-speed rail, Iliana Expressway. As I said a little bit ago, residential and population growth. 6,000 and 7,000 and east-west corridor. That's the 6,000 interchange road. Commuter rail to Chicago and a countywide stormwater district. Those were all parts of that plan that did not happen, at least not yet. Some of that is still on the books. Some of it is never going to happen. So the planning process. Repeat it every about 10 to 15 years. First, you adopt the plan. Then you make adjustments to the plan. You update your ordinances, policies, and other plans to coincide with this plan. So it's a ever evolving series. You update your plan, then you look at your codes to make sure that you can achieve that plan with those codes. You look at your policies, which are part of the plan, some other internal policies to make sure you're promoting the plan. Then you look at your other ancillary plans, such as the Greenways and Trails plan, or other plans that might be out there, to make sure that they coincide with the new plan. Then we implement the plan, and you look at your goals, objectives, recommendations, and you should always look at those when making your zoning decisions, because that is the most number one way the county board can implement their plan is with their zoning decisions. And that's where we're at. That's it. So
Okay. Anyone have any questions? There's probably a million of them. Carol, Miss Weber, go ahead, please.
Is there a plan? Is there a plan to look at this comprehensive plan?
it's been discussed a little bit, but no, not yet. Not anything solid. We would need to write up an RFP and get a consultant. This is too big of a job for the planning department to take on. Have to have a consultant. And it's pricey. I can tell you this one cost $250,000. Okay, so, and that was in 2005. I could only guess that it's at least 300 now.
So it would have to be put into a budget, into the budget.
Yes. Now there may be some grant opportunities out there as well. The majority of this one was paid by a transportation grant.
That's what I was going to ask
I
about.
don't know if that would still be available or not. Maybe for parts of it, at least the transportation part of it, possibly. But we'll have to look into that if the county board would like to update its plan. It doesn't have to be updated. We can continue with what we've got, but it falls short in a lot of different locations, as you can see.
Okay, Del, if I remember right, we don't have to. You wouldn't have to pay that all at one time, right? Over the 2-year period, you would pay as you went. Is that how it goes, or
That's how most contracts work. You give them an upfront amount, 30%, 40%, something like that. Sometimes it's 20%, and then they bill you monthly with a final payment held back of the last 10% or something like that until the plan is adopted and you're sure that they did what they were supposed to do. So
how about extra labor by staff?
well, that's always included in something. If you have grants, there's always there's always some type of commitment from staff.
Okay. Well, obviously, I mean, would it take?
At the very least, our GIS department would be hugely involved providing maps and GIS data.
And how about as far as coordinating with the municipalities as far as their areas around them? Do we have to work with the villages on those, or will we work with just the people that live around the area?
Both. Okay. You definitely want as much input as you can get.
So would that require us going to other towns and holding a meeting like in Manteno at the community center and let everybody in the area talk about it there?
It can, and we did in 2005. We went to various parts of the county, not every municipality, but we had something in Manteno and invited everybody, and specifically invited Manteno and Grant Park to that one. And we had one out in Herscher, I believe. We invited all the small towns around there. So yes. That can all be part of the RFP, so you can decide how you want to do that.
Ms. Foster?
I just wanted to say that with the pipeline coming to Pembroke, we're in the process of working with Dell to put something together for planning for Pembroke.
That's a good idea. You never have too many plans.
Well, we're hoping. But I wanted to ask you a question, Dell, as far as the public input. It said in the presentation that it could be done after a plan is put together, or
No.
it should be done before and with the public?
You must have a public hearing,
Okay,
and that comes after.
after the
The
plan is
public
made.
input, public involvement should start day one
Okay,
and carry throughout the entire process. But the official public hearing where you have the court reporter, that comes at the end,
okay.
towards the end.
I didn't see anything on the maps as far as where the land is for the conservatory people.
Well, that
didn't
wasn't a
show-
thing in 2005.
Okay,
So there was not part of the map in 2005 because it wasn't on any of our radars.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Eckhoff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dell, so back in 2005 with that $250,000, did you divide it up with other municipalities, or this just was Kankakee County as a whole instead of trying
Kankakee
to...
County. 'Cause This
Okay.
is the Kankakee County's plan.
Yeah. So is there a way that we can do an intergovernmental agreement to try... Well, that would probably double the price or whatever because you do all those
all municipalities have their own plans, or they should. Not all, the little ones don't. Okay, but the county does its planning, the municipalities do their planning. We don't plan inside the municipalities, they don't necessarily plan in the county. Definitely not outside their mile and a half.
Okay, so we
But
may
we
have
should work together.
Yeah, so we have a different opinion than they may, and then they may just go ahead and say, no, this is what we want to go ahead and do. Okay, I understand.
And if they annex it, they can do what they want as far as their plan goes.
Okay.
And the county's plan doesn't really matter. But we would hope that they would at least consult our plan before they make
But
that
that's why I asked if we could do an intergovernmental agreement between the two. Second question is, could we use ARPA in a different way for using the...
That would be a question for Andy. I'm not sure how ARPA funds can be spent,
Okay,
but it's possible.
might be a smart option.
Yeah.
But I also know there's some time frames there. I don't
Yeah.
know that you could get it done before ARPA has to be spent either.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wheeler.
Dell's process basically explained that we are to take into account the strategic plans of all the municipalities, but we don't necessarily create them in concert with them. So as we're working on our strategic plan, village or city X, it has an area that they have pegged for residential. We should include that in our comprehensive plan. I think that's what Dell was saying. Am I correct?
Basically, unless you think
Yeah.
they're totally off base, because there's a
Right.
railroad there and an interchange, and it really ought to be, industrial.
Correct. So the IGA part of it is, I don't want to say not necessary, but we should all take into consideration what our thoughts are, and if we agree to disagree, that's okay. Now, I'd much rather spend grant money than ARPA money on this. There's a lot of federal grants out of USEDA that are specifically for these types of things. So there's always a local portion of it, and it can be up to 20%, but that's still a nice chunk of change. So the local portion, yes, but I wouldn't want to, not waste isn't the right word. I'd rather use the ARPA funds for other things that there aren't necessarily grants for. Does that make sense?
Just adding on to the municipality part of it, ideally, and this happened in 2005, we asked the municipalities to pass a resolution supporting our plan after it was adopted. Not all of them did, but I think we got about 10 out of the 21 municipalities. Well, it's 19 municipalities then. So,
All set, Andy? All set? That's it, Andy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And just know that we knew we needed a strategic plan, but we also had to have a solvent county first. And so the option of updating our strategic plan or paying state's attorneys and policemen were at odds with each other. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now that we're not just surviving, we're actually starting to flourish. Now we can take a look at things like this in the local match requirement.
We went through a really bad economy and COVID and a couple other things too, so it's time to move forward though.
the plan stays active. I mean, if you want to wait another 10 years to review this, you can. This plan would still be in effect. It just gets less and less effective every year.
And Dell, it's much cheaper to update the current plan than to start from scratch, correct?
Really, it's probably about the same, because they're gonna analyze this plan, but we're gonna rewrite most of it. But we don't have to. If the county board decided we really, MPO's taking care of transportation, we really don't need to do that. Economic Alliance is taking care of economic development. We really don't need to do that. We'll follow their plans. You could just update the land use plan. You could update just portions of it if you'd like.
Okay, and Del, explain to everybody the legalities of this document, that if we decide to put something in a particular place and it doesn't fit our plan and we get a lawsuit against us because we're putting something where it doesn't belong. Or let's put it the other way. If somebody's putting something where it doesn't belong.
I can address that somewhat. First of all, it's a plan. It's not an ordinance. It's not law. Your zoning map and ordinance is. This is a guide. Where you can run into legal trouble is when you go against your plan.
That doesn't
Okay.
help for you.
If the plan says that area should be residential, and you convert it to commercial without good justification and without updating your plan, you can run into trouble in the courts later on if something were to
It is
come
a
up.
document that's, you know,
Yes, they all work in conjunction with each other. This is your guide. Your ordinance is what this guides what your decisions from the ordinance, but the ordinance should be changed to match these policies that are in this. So they work hand in hand.
okay.
Really hard to have one without the other.
Okay. Okay, barring any more questions, no? Okay.
Just one second.
Dell wanted to say something.
Y'all graduated. All right, and that is the final, part D is the final one that I had lined up. If there's something else that you would like some training on, floodplain, stormwater, other things, let me know and we'll put something together. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Dell.
So, Dale, you
Okay.
gonna send us this?
Yes, I will send this out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up, we have to approve that, Kelly? Transportation? Or is that just an update?
No, it's just a discussion.
Okay, we have Mr. Wilson here, back at number 18, ready to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a former consultant, I'll tell you, you scrap the entire plan and take the big paycheck to write the new one. It's just,
It's
when we
outdated.
would do these bids and you'd say, "Hi, we got this great plan," we say, "That's great. You pay us $300,000 to come down and write it, so we're just going to throw the old one away and write the new one with our flair." And it's the nature of consulting. So, and it's a really tough thing to kind of compartmentalize those. I will say this though. The state does have some planning funds from the transportation side that Dell was alluding to that they're looking to leverage. So, it could be, Andy's suggestion of EDA funds, or maybe something from DOT where we could do some sort of 80-20 split to look at getting a grant portion for the lion's share of it, and then having a smaller ask of the county board to finalize an update to the comp plan. But it's very important, and I guess that a little bit of what I'm talking about today, I think we're going to have some sort of standing agenda item or maybe kind of regular update. We get circulars from DOT all of the time about funds being available. Timelines are typically always tight on them. This one in particular doesn't have an awfully tight timeline, but you do have the circular. But Safe Streets for All is a program that came out. The state has replenished $1 billion through the bipartisan infrastructure law. So Bill made available another $1 billion. And they've lumped another 170 into it, 170 million. So it's a big chunk of funds federally, and there's kind of two tranches for this. So there's a state action, there's an action plan for the local jurisdiction, and then there's an implementation plan program. And you cannot implement without a plan. The state of Illinois looks like they will be completing a plan for each of the jurisdictions, but that doesn't preclude us necessarily from applying for funds ourselves. So at the staff level, what we're trying to do is create the appropriate timeline by working through the committee in putting together a potential for a grant application in the event the state does not create an action plan representing Kankakee County. But also kind of trying to check some of the boxes that come with this, and one of those is in the state of Illinois we have goal zero. So we want 0 deaths on the roadway for all users. That's motorists, non-motorists, and what we consider to be the vulnerable population of users. And part of this exercise is having a formal declaration from the authority, so chief elected official in the county board chairman, Mr. Wheeler, where we would say our goal is to meet that goal zero. I don't believe that anybody at DOT expects to snap their fingers and have 0 deaths in Illinois. We have probably 1,300 deaths on the road right now. I don't even know the number, but it's always a very staggering number. We have almost double-digit deaths, or I guess maybe 16 deaths rolling in from last year in Kankakee. We're on pace for probably a similar number this year. and we would all like that number to be 0. But interestingly enough, in this SS4A, one of the requirements in order to get to the implementation step is that the governing body has expressed this support of the effort of Goal 0. So if a motion is made today, I would like to, as we move through this process, make sure that one of the things this county board can do is empower Mr. Wheeler to say things like, Kankakee County supports Goal 0. And I don't believe that anybody doesn't support that, but we've never really kind of made that our final effort. So this grant's due in July. We've got a little bit of time, but it's April, and I'm going to blink, and it's going to be July, and it's just the way life works. Again, if the state of Illinois carries the heavy load for us, that's fantastic. But also, we like to belt and suspender pretty much everything we do in the planning department. So we'll continue to work through this. I don't have the formal grant application done. I don't have a formal request before me. This circular came through. I wanted to share it with this committee. But likely next month, I will be bringing you grant paperwork and a request for authorization for us to apply. The one piece of that being, this is another one of those 80-20 things. So we're looking for how we fund it on our end, and we want to make that ask appropriately aligned with what our budget looks like currently. The one very unfortunate part of this is because it is federal funds, I can't use any of our MPO grant, which is also federal funds, for match. That would be a really easy, pull 20K out of that, throw 20, then do a $100,000 plan. We don't quite have that ability. So that's why we're working with Michael Vanderhoff at DOT to see how they can use the state's match for a federal match and just kind of throw an umbrella over the areas that don't have SS4A plans and get that done for the state. Really, the entire state should have this. At the MPO level, I will tell you, we've been visiting other MPOs to talk about best practices, talk about improving our system. How can we plan more? How can we make sure our public, is more engaged? How can we make sure we're hitting on Justice 40 initiatives? How can we make sure we're hitting on carbon reduction initiatives? Really looking at our entire system as a whole and trying to make sure that everything that makes sense and can be done and implemented quickly at a local level we're doing. Those are those things that are longer term we're asking you for that authority to do. We're likely going to broaden that. The state of Minnesota has a really fantastic kind of 10-year Goal 0 in place right now, and so we're reaching out to other states to see how they're even doing it to make our initiatives better. So all of this will kind of roll into and I know Chairman Wheeler always asks us to look for funds, and I know there's always a lot of funds available, but big dollar figures come in from the feds, or at least announcements of big dollar figures. Oh, there's all this money available. We want to make sure that the dollars that actually hit the street, that actually become available to us, because Congress presses a lot of funds available, the governor presses a lot of funds available, but sometimes those never come to fruition. And it's like, yeah, there's lots of money available. Well, where is it? And trying to make sure that when it is something like this $1 billion that was announced that is available for this use, that we're maximizing that opportunity. So more to come on SS4A, but I just wanted to give you that circular and talk a little bit about that. One other circular that came through since we sent that one, 3-4 days ago, there's more on National Electric Vehicle Inventory, so the NEVI program in the state of Illinois. So we have a large national program. Mr. Chris Schmidt's heading it up for the state of Illinois. They're looking to have certain requirements on charging stations. We have been identified in Kankakee, likely in the city of Kankakee, to be one of those charging stations. So what the real goal is there to have sub 30-minute charging, 6 or more units within, let's say, a mile of the expressway. So somewhere like a new truck stop maybe could have a location where you could charge vehicles and have something to do for that 30 minutes. I think there's a philosophical thought about electric vehicles, and I don't know how any of you feel about it. I know how I personally feel about it, but regardless of any of those feelings, this is something that's coming, and this is something the state is going to implement. And if they're going to make grant funds available and make it easier to charge vehicles, we'll make sure we're in line. So I know it's a lot, and I know some people maybe don't necessarily agree with them, but I do also feel if there's a grant opportunity there that potentially can offer some value to our residents or visitors, we'll make sure we're in line. So, thank you.
Okay.
Were you
Anything
asking
else?
for? Were you
Sorry.
asking for a motion today, Ben?
No motion today.
I don't think we should move on anything that's not on the agenda, probably. Sure, go ahead.
That it has money for underserved communities, from what I'm looking at right here.
So on the, you're talking about, so for SS4A.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's always components for underserved, and there's always a conversation about potentially maximizing grant funds for underserved communities where they could do diminished match. I think the problem we'll have is Kankakee County as a whole is not an underserved community, right? So we have portions of our community that are defined as underserved census tracts, but if we as the lead agency are applying for it, we encompass the entire geography. And so we can't just say, oh, well, we've got a couple census tracts, can we get 100% grant or get to the front of the line for being an underserved community? Now, when they review that application, I believe if a portion of our population is defined as underserved, that makes us more competitive, which is a good thing. But I don't believe we're going to be able to apply for any sort of waiver from a funding standpoint. So I still think we'll be looking for that 20% at the local level.
Okay. Anyone else have anything for Mr. Wilson? Thank you, sir. You have anything else for us? No, I'm sorry.
I will likely at the next meeting, and this is really just for the edification of this room, and a lot of people involved in our MPO activities understand this. We get updates from DOT on existing projects, and so I'm going to start sharing those. I was thinking just kind of generally, you all drive our road systems and you say, why is 57 still under construction? Why are they closing 57 at night? It's because there's some bridge pier issues on the northbound lanes that are taking longer than we thought. We're driving more on that improved shoulder, which that HMA was not designed to be driven on as much as it has been. It starts to squirt out and kind of become a little more fluid. They had to replace all of that to make it safe. These updates are in there, kind of just the general, here's where we are, we're going into phase 2 decking or things like that, where I'll share that with this committee, just so you know, as you're driving our system, for the projects that we're not talking about at highway, and waterways, or that the cities aren't talking about necessarily from a city standpoint from their MFT funds. These are the statewide projects where you might want to know when a mast arm is being replaced. We're about to go to bid for Route 1 and 17 for mast arm. We'll go to bid in June. So that's on that update. So you'll know that project's coming when it's under construction and you start to see it. So just, you'll have a little better feel for what's happening in our traffic system, I think, if I share these updates more regularly.
Okay, we should try to get that as an agenda item on our rivers and highways and waterways committee that we have.
Yeah, I got another question. One of the things about safety is that when you mentioned 1 and 17, 17 going into Moments, that curve, we have a lot.
Rose, can you talk? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm concerned about when you mentioned 1 and 17, when you're going into Moments, that curve there that you go off to Pembroke. But we have a lot more semis that go through there, that's going through Moments, and that part of the of 17, it needs to be widened. That is an area that's just, it's going to be an accident right there, and you have the school buses that stop because you still have housing right there in that little area, and we did have an accident there, a fatal accident a few years ago.
Yeah, and I try to be cautious when I talk about this. We're very good in the state of Illinois for waiting for a fatality to happen and then saying, man, we really need to do this improvement of the system. And that's just not the appropriate way to look at goal 0, right? As we talk about moving forward, you don't wait for the deaths and make the changes. That being said, there's probably $20 trillion worth of road improvements that need to be done in order to make it safer, and then still likely we'll have some issues. I will say, from a staff standpoint and MPO standpoint, one of the things that we've been doing, we've asked permission from the state of Illinois. We purchased traffic counters, and when we purchased them, because we used the grant funds, we got a little more upgraded product, so we can count speeds and headway and types of vehicles, including lengths. And we've been looking at all sorts of areas throughout the county. While we plan for our metropolitan planning area, which is just kind of the urban core, we have received authorization from DOT to look at other areas. We do an annual east-west truck traffic analysis, and there are targeted areas we have been looking at in areas that aren't necessarily within our MPA, and we're happy to start to do counts to give more empirical data to DOT on a more regular basis. They're doing traffic counts for us every 3 years. We do traffic counts all summer long, every single year. And when I get a conversation from a board member saying, hey, we've got a lot of trucks or got a lot of whatever driving through a certain area, we throw mag counters down, and we know within that count exactly the number of units we're talking about. There's not a lot of guesstimates. There's not a lot of trying to do 12-hour counts and extrapolate. We're doing actual 36-hour counts. We then turn that information over to DOT to say, hey, here's the new data. You know, if you're talking about improving road projects, you're telling me counts are here. Here is that new data, and we've been very fortunate. The staff at DOT said, you know, if it's good for your system, if it's good for your roads, if it's in and out of your MPA, it qualifies as an MPA type activity.
Mr. Wheeler has a question, I believe.
It was going to be the nature of DOT, and you touched on it. I think I know the answer now that you're done, but since this is a state route, where would they have that data? Would they gather it towards 57, or do they gather it the state's data? Or I guess I'm assuming they have it, and it sounds like not every time they do have it, you have to supply it to them. Is that correct?
So they do single counts, and we get, again, we have a really good relationship with DOT, and they give us all of their points every year for counts. But sometimes they're doing 12-hour counts in a single location, and then they're extrapolating it across the entire length of that segment. Their segment lengths are far longer than ours are. We're much more granular when we collect data because we're a small MPO and we're worried about our roads. They're worried about everybody's roads. So yeah, they'll have an entire segment. They might do a single count from Route 17 all the way to St. Anne, just somewhere on that segment on Route 1, and they count it somewhere in the middle, or maybe closer, and then they just extrapolate, kind of guessing at what traffic counts are. And that might be as old as 2020 data at this point, where we're turning over to them a count we did. Well, we haven't done it yet because it's still snowing, but once it stops snowing for sure, we'll be out there, and we might turn over May counts to them to say, here's the new data we have. So yeah, sometimes it is just, I don't want to say a guess, but it's very educated in their process, but they're not necessarily doing finite segment counts. They're doing kind of less granular, more broad strokes approaches to traffic counting.
Because one of the things I would like to see, because
sorry.
you know, when that corn is growing, if you're coming out of Pembroke, you can't see those trucks coming.
Yeah.
You know, through Moment, you know, coming from Moments, but you know, there is land that another person farms right in that little circle. I would love to see if the county could buy him out and put like a little thoroughfare where the show bus could come and pick up people right there.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's another
Yeah, well, and
idea.
I think this all
something
goes
for
back to Dell's conversation on comprehensive planning, right?
Yeah.
Things changes.
Yeah, 'cause
Things
you
have
know,
changed in 20 years.
But all of these segments are intertwined, and kind of all of these threads make up, you know, our system. And yeah, it's making sure that the roads are safe, but also that people have access to transportation, and that we have setback requirements that are appropriate to make sure that turn radiuses are safe. All of that goes into this kind of whole picture.
Yeah.
All I can say from our standpoint is, if as a board member, if you have a concern, and try and find the appropriate department head. So, you know, if it's a planning concern, if it's a road concern, or whatever, you know, get it to Dell, get it to Greg, and we'll see what we can do at the staff level to look into that. I'm not, you know, promising any solutions or fast action, depending on what agencies or you know, alternate agencies are involved. But if you've got something like that, bring it to our attention. We're happy to look into it to see what we can do.
And you know, the other thing is that you have new people on the board. So new people have issues that they have seen in their communities. And we have females on the board. And mothers, you know, we look at things differently than what men. Men, you know, they're just driving.
I'm
Women
not
are
gonna-
looking.
I'm not gonna bite on that generalization.
Okay, yeah, let's not do that. So we don't do that here.
Okay.
So, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilson. And we're going to put you on the agenda for next month's meeting for his. Is that okay?
It'll be a standing agenda
Okay.
item, I believe.
Like
yes.
the MS4.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I guess we have next up will be old business. We don't have anything under old business I have written down here. I don't see anything under new business except for an opening on the Kankakee County Zoning Board of Appeals. Does it have a location preference, Del? You know, a particular area we need to represent?
Well, we have a current member.
Okay,
If somebody would like to apply,
Yeah. Okay.
as long as they don't live in a township where we already have a member, they certainly could.
Okay, 'cause I didn't think you had anybody extra. Okay, barring none, okay, Mr. Fairfield.
Number 11. I was wondering if Delbert could maybe do a training on drainage districts, if he's able to do that. Since we're having these issues with the solar laws and all that kind of stuff, might be a good thing to
Training in, I guess, training in what regard? You want to know where they're
how
all
they
at?
work, and how they're affected by maybe the solar farms being put in.
Okay, a little out of my wheelhouse,
Really,
but I'll
really
look
a
into it.
depth thing, but just something to an overview of what
We'll get to the right
drainage
person.
districts are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think that, and maybe this is what Ray's talking about, the relationship between the county and drainage districts and what our role is in drainage. Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Yes, I
Okay.
just think
Yeah.
I know about drainage districts and kind of what they are, but how they're being affected now by solar, the new solar laws would be something I could
Yeah.
wrap my head around what's happening with that.
There is an
Sure,
Illinois Drainage
I can tell you my phone rang during the meeting. I didn't answer it, obviously, but it was a drainage district. They have a industrial neighbor that is blowing out their tiles. And so I've been talking with Dell the past few weeks about what is that legal responsibility we have and what can we do with the situation. And it's a very tough one for us.
Right.
And we won't get into it right now, but maybe we can use that as an example, Dell, and talk in generalities on
Sure.
what our role is in that, if any,
Right.
you know?
So we could put
put
that
something
under old business, right, Andy? That could go under old business, Andy, or for next
It
meeting?
could just be drainage district discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably
Yeah.
put it under planning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like we're doing a little bit of that these
Yeah,
days.
we'll see what we can come together. Maybe if we hold off till June, I can actually get a guest speaker here that's far more knowledgeable about drainage districts than I am, but I can walk you through it. We'll get where we need to be.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. That's all, Andy?
Yep.
You set? Okay, now, barring anything else on the agenda here, I'm a motion to adjourn. Mr. Long, Mr. Ashcraft, second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign.